It's just before 7 a.m. Got the skins on and I am going to head up. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Arielle, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about uphill skiing, skinning, splitboarding, touring, backcountry adventures. To me, it's all kind of lumped together in one thing. And truth be told, I honestly feel a little bit underqualified to talk about this because I really am just getting into it myself. But I get so many questions on Instagram about all of these things, about the equipment I'm using, about how to get into it. So I'm just gonna share with you what I know. I asked in my Instagram stories last week if you guys had any questions you want me to answer, so I'm going to dive into as many of those as I can. And I will say this, there are likely some of you out there watching this that are way more qualified to talk about this than I am. So if there's anything that I share that you want to elaborate more on in the comments, go ahead and do so. Or if people ask questions in the comments and you know the answer, please feel free to respond. This is definitely like a collaborative effort here. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't ignoring everybody's questions. So I'm gonna share with you what I know, what I'm excited about, what's working for me, and try to answer as many questions as possible. Before I get into all of the Q's and all of the A's, I'm gonna share with you guys just a couple of clips from the other morning when I took my alpine touring ski setup up Aspen Mountain, which is a local resort here. It's about 3,000 plus vertical foot gain, and it took me about an hour and 45 minutes. So I'll check back in after. It's just before 7 a.m. Got the skins on and I am going to head up. To show you guys a morning where I went skinning on my local resort, because one of the #1 questions I got asked is how do you get into this as a beginner? How do you get started? And I found that if your local resort allows for uphill skiing, it is one of the best ways to start to learn how to use your equipment, to get comfortable out there, and to get some great fitness. I mean, so many people where I live use this as a way to just stay fit throughout the winter. Now, it's really important to check in with your local resort as to what their rules and regulations are around this. Where I live, there is uphill skiing allowed on all 4 of our local resorts, although 2 of them, you're only allowed to do it when the mountain is closed, so in off hours. And so that's really important to know. That morning that I showed you guys, I had to go super early because I had to be done with the uphill part of my adventure before 9 a.m. when the lift started to run. So that is a really awesome place to start your uphill exploration. The second most common question that I got asked is to just as a generalization, explain what I mean by uphill skiing, what splitboarding is, alpine touring, and kind of the different modalities. So first and foremost, I want to delineate on all the different ways that you can explore on skis and snowboards, because there's actually a lot. The first is your regular downhill skiing and regular snowboarding that you would do on a resort, right? Just regular clipping in, going down, whatever it looks like, all right? The next one is cross-country skiing, or like North Nordic skiing. And those are really skinny skis. They are also really light. There's different modalities within that, but the intention of that is what it sounds like, cross country. So you're not really scaling mountains on cross-country skis. You're going maybe on long, hilly, meandering paths. It's a great way to explore valley floors, but you're not gonna be like getting to the top of a mountain on your cross-country skis, or it's unlikely. It'd be pretty impressive. So the category of skiing and snowboarding that I'm talking about today is not those two, although the downhill part might come into play with the alpine touring setup that you have, or where you decide to explore. But I'm talking about uphill skiing, alpine ski touring, and splitboarding. And they're all kind of the same category. You can take them into the backcountry, or you can take them onto the resort, or a combination of both, which is what I like to do. So there's two setups. Obviously, you have the ski setup or the snowboard setup. The ski setup is called an alpine touring setup, and there are a lot of different alpine touring setup options. And as much as I want to go into all of the details, truth be told, I am not trying to become a gear page. Obviously, I share with you guys some of my favorite things on my Instagram, and I'll continue to do that. But I don't ever see myself on this page being like someone who's like comparing and reviewing gear. I prefer to talk about lifestyle, health, wellness, those types of things. So if you're looking for some of that detailed information, there are way better resources out there on the internet than this page. But as an alpine touring setup, basically for you to know, you would have your ski, you would have your touring binding, which is different than a regular alpine binding. It's a binding that allows your heel to be free while you're going uphill, and then has a mechanism that keeps your heel down for going downhill. There are different types of alpine touring bindings, but that's basically the basis. The heel is free when you're going up, and the heel is down when you're coming down. The other piece is the boots. You do need specific boots for alpine touring, like for an alpine touring setup, because you need your ankle to be able to move like this. Regular alpine boots keep your ankle locked in position to protect it and to give you that ability to drive your shins forward. But the alpine touring binding is like this, so that you can make a stride as you go uphill, and then it has the ability to lock in when you go downhill, so you can get that same responsiveness. And then the other piece that's different, the ski itself, you likely want something lighter than what you might ski on the normal resort. My skis are actually like kind of good all-around skis. They're not the lightest option out there, and they've been working great for me because my main goal with my ski touring setup is fitness. So I'm okay with them being a tiny bit heavier, but the lighter you go, obviously the easier it is to go up, the harder it is to go down. So you want to be a really good skier if you get a really light setup. And then the last piece is your skins, which was one of the questions that got asked on my Instagram story. The skin, which I think I showed you guys in that video, is a piece of more or less material where it's really sticky on one side, and then it's like reverse carpet on the other, is the best way I would describe it. You stick it onto your skis, and then one way it glides and one way it doesn't glide, so that when you're sliding the ski up the mountain, it slides up, but then it doesn't slide back down. And that's what allows you to climb the mountain up on your skis, is the skins. And so you may have heard the terminology skinning, and that comes from using your skins to go uphill. Okay, now I want to talk to you a little bit about the snowboard side of things. If you're a snowboarder, it's called splitboarding. I actually am a snowboarder. I grew up competitive snowboarding, and in the last year or two, I've kind of dabbled with skiing, and this year I thought it would be fun to get an alpine touring ski setup. It just seems a little bit more practical for some of the things I want to do in the backcountry, so I've been working on that a lot. But I started my uphill experience with a splitboard, and I love my splitboard. I just got a brand new one that I'm super pumped on. And when you're in the downhill setup, it looks just like a regular board, but when you take it apart to go uphill, it creates two planks, which you kind of take to the opposite side, so it's not like making the snowboard shape, it's making kind of like the opposite shape. And then you take the bindings off, and again, you attach them so that the toe is connected and the heel is free, and it looks a lot like a ski setup, like a very, very weirdly shaped ski setup. Same thing with the skins. You go up the mountain, and then when you're at the top, you take your skins off, you take your bindings off, you clip the board back together, and you slide the bindings into place, and then you're good to go to snowboard down, just like you would on a regular snowboard that is not a splitboard. So those are the two different ways, the two different setups that you can use for uphilling There's the alpine touring ski setup or the splitboard setup. Okay, so next there was a few different questions about getting off of the resort and getting into the backcountry and what that transition might look like. Now, you may have a different opinion than me, but based on my experience getting out there in the backcountry, you want to be a pretty proficient skier or snowboarder before you take that skill into the backcountry, because you have to have the ability to get yourself out of wherever you are and, you know, not get stuck in a tree well or whatever it might be. You don't have the resource of ski patrol. A lot of times you don't have even the resource of cell reception, cell service. And so it's really, really important that you are proficient in whatever modality you're using before you take it off the resort and into the backcountry. Okay, so this brings us right into one of the other questions is, do I need to do an avalanche course before I go into the backcountry? Now, there are plenty of people who go out and explore in the backcountry who have never done any sort of avalanche course. There are actually a lot of areas you can go explore in the backcountry where there really is minimal to no avalanche danger. But I would say that if you have the curiosity to really get out there and explore in the backcountry, I really think it's important. I have done my Avalanche 1 course twice so far. The first time I did it was 6 years ago, and truth be told, it actually scared me away from doing backcountry adventuring. It was very sobering, the stories that we had to read, and it made me realize that this is a really big deal. You know, we're leaving the safety net of the resort, we're leaving this controlled environment, and it made me actually like quite scared. And so I actually put aside the idea of backcountry exploration for quite a few years until recently. And I redid my Avalanche course this time around, and I left feeling really empowered to get out there and to explore low angle terrain, meaning terrain where there really isn't avalanche danger, or it's very low consequence or low likelihood of avalanches. Now, I live in Colorado. Colorado is really, really, in general, dangerous for backcountry exploration for most of the winter because we have very unstable snowpacks. There are other places in the country, like out in Tahoe, where you have that maritime storm pattern where it's wetter, it's heavier, you get more snow, and the conditions out in those areas, they fluctuate a lot, but there's a lot more times where it's safe to explore out in the backcountry than here in Colorado. So here in Colorado, I really keep it mellow. I go out there for fitness. I go out there to get my dog some exercise and to get a couple low angle pow turns here and there. If you are trying to get some legit backcountry pow turns, you definitely need to do your avalanche course, 100%, no questions. It's not just your safety, it's the safety of whoever else you bring out there. It's the safety of the people that have to come rescue you if there were to be something that happens. It's the safety of people who may be traveling below you if you're above them and set something off. So it's really, really important for you to understand what you're doing and the consequences of that. A lot of you asked how you find places to explore in the backcountry, and the internet is a marvelous thing. I'm sure if you do a little Googling on your local area, you'll find some things. I've also found, for me, I've gotten into really into backcountry exploration this year more than any other year. And what I've done is really explore areas that I hike in the summertime. So areas that I'm really, really familiar with. And I, having done the Avalanche course 2 times, I kind of have an idea when I picture like a hike that I've been on. I think of like, are there areas where it's really steep and there are trees missing? Ooh, that might be an avalanche path. So maybe that's not where I explore on that hike. Maybe there's other hikes that I've been on that are wooded the whole time. There's tons of trees. Those are unlikely going to be, it's unlikely for an avalanche to be in those zones. There just aren't the signs and symptoms for it. And so those are the areas that I'm exploring. Or roads that are closed. Here we have a ton of mountain pass roads that close in the winter. And so I go out and explore. You can skin up very, very low consequence out there. Generally there are people out there cross-country skiing as well. And then I'll make maybe little detours off into little hiking trails and things like that. But again, I keep it, especially as I'm getting into this sport, I really try to keep it safe by exploring areas that I already know really well. So that would be my #1 suggestion. And it can be hard to find people to do this with if you are new to it and you're trying to get into it. But the more you get out there, the more you'll meet people, and maybe there's like Facebook groups or forums or things of that nature. Try to be resourceful, because if you're living in a mountain town or a mountain area, there are for sure people who like to do these sorts of things or who want to get into it as well. So try your best just to put yourself out there a little bit, and like I said, be resourceful, use the internet, and try to make some new friends, and you'll be so surprised. You really only need like one good adventure buddy, especially if they have the same like days off as you, to like open up a whole new world of exploration. Okay, so I answered most of the major questions. The ones that I answered before were the ones where there was multiple of you, many of you wanting to know those types of answers or some derivative of that. So I want to answer some of the random ones because I wish I would have known some of these when I got started. So one of the questions was, how do you prepare your hip flexors for it? She said, my hip flexors kill every time I skin. If you haven't gotten into uphill skinning yet, this is something to be mindful of, because these muscles and all the connective tissue in that area, this is a new experience for them, especially if your skis or splitboard are kind of heavy. Every time you lift your foot, you're lifting that weight, and so it puts a lot of strain on your hip flexors. So the best tips I have for you, because this was something I also experienced a ton of in the beginning and it kept me from wanting to go out there, is one, improve your technique. As best as you can, you're not actually lifting the ski up off the snow. Obviously, if you're doing like breaking trail in fresh powder, you will have to lift a little bit, but if you're skinning up a resort, there's no reason for you to lift the weight of that ski off the snow at all. Just learn how to really lift and glide. That helps my hip flexors so much. The other piece is lighter equipment. The lighter equipment is the less likely you are to deal with this. I noticed that my old splitboard, I had this experience a lot more than with my new setup, which is a bit lighter. So those would be my first two things. And then third, just anything you can do to reduce overall inflammation in your body will be helpful. I've been on a massive inflammation reducing life protocol type thing for the last couple of years, since I was dealing with all of the autoimmune issues. And I've noticed that things like this don't happen to me as much anymore because I just don't have as much inflammation in my body. So that's my answer to that. Okay, one of the next ones was safety tips for dogs, and every dog is a little bit different. Tabor is like such a snow mountain dog. She's used to it. We got her right before winter. She loves the snow. We do put wax on her paws to prevent the snow and ice from building up in between her paws. I actually just got a tip from someone recently to put coconut oil on like her hair, like her, call them her butt tufts, but she has like these feathery hair on the backs of her legs, because those things get full of snowballs, and that would make it so much more comfortable for your dog if they don't have the snowballs. So I will test that out and let you guys know how it works, but the wax works really well. Some dogs, the wax isn't enough. Some dogs' paws are more sensitive than that and they need little booties. They likely will hate them at first, but they are a really, really helpful thing to just protect your dog's paws. There's lots of different booty options out there. And then the rest kind of depends on where you're at. Some areas will require you to have your dog on a leash. So likely you'd want a harness for the dog and have the dog on some sort of safety lead. Luckily around here, there's a lot of areas we can explore with her off leash, which is amazing. But I always have a leash in my bag, and I always have a dog water bottle, the ones that you can unscrew and pour so she can drink out of the lid. And I always have doggy bags. There is no poop fairy. Pick up your dog's poop, please. People are like, oh, well, it's in the snow, it will get buried. No, like, pick up your dog's poop. You're responsible for that. You have to carry it out. So I always have poop bags with me as well. Super important. I think that's really it. Obviously, like, you want to make sure your dog is on, if it's off leash, that your dog is on good voice command and has a general understanding of where it should be and shouldn't be, or like you can get them to be near you, because obviously when you are touring out in the backcountry, there are places around you that are safe and unsafe, and so you want to make sure your dog will listen to you and will stay with you. And also, it's a lot easier for your dog to follow in your tracks than to break trail. So we've had to really work on training her to be the end of the line, which as a herding dog, she always wants to like kind of herd us all to the front, but this heavy, steep snow is really hard for her. So we've had to really train her to learn to be behind. So that's all I have for now. If you have any other specific questions, feel free to shoot them down in the comments and I will answer them. I love this one. This was kind of random, but you know what? If you don't live in the mountains, I could see you wanting to know this. So one of the questions was, how do you pack water if it just freezes? A water bottle like this is best. It's insulated, the water doesn't freeze. honestly, now jeans are fine too, like the plastic ones. It's not likely it's gonna freeze for like just while you're out there on an adventure. In general, camelbacks are a no-go because the tubes freeze and then you can't get any of your water out. So as much as I love hiking with a camelback in the summer, I've had to learn how to convert to drinking out of one of these in the winter. And I will say that I don't drink nearly as much water when I'm like out adventuring in the winter as when I do in the summer. And so sometimes I have to really like remind myself to drink more water because it's really easy to get dehydrated. You are generally sweating a bit in your clothes and everything like that. Okay, so something that it wasn't necessarily explicitly asked. There was a lot of people asking for like clothes based on fashion. They liked how my clothes looked, that sort of thing. But I do actually want to talk a little bit about what you wear out there because layering is so important when you are touring in the backcountry. You really don't want to sweat if you can avoid it because sweat, once you stop moving, gets really, really cold in the winter. So I always have a ton of layers and you're gonna be skinning with much less than you think you would. So generally when I get started, I have, I'm layered up with my base layer, long underwear pants, my, I usually wear bibs, like ski pant bibs, and then I have a tank top. I have like a shirt like this, like a base layer shirt, and then I have like a fleece hoodie type thing. That's usually what I start hiking in. The fleece hoodie comes off very quickly, and most of the time I'm hiking in just a layer that's kind of like this thickness. Now when I get to the top, before I have a chance to get cold, I put on my fleece, I put on my ski jacket, I put on warmer gloves. So it's super important to have extra warm layers to put on once you're up there, and to have like, I even have sometimes different layers of gloves, starting with like some really thin gloves and then some warm mittens to put on when I'm at the top and I'm gonna come down. Because like I said, sweat can turn into making you very, very, very cold. So super important if you're hiking uphill and you start to get hot to take off the layers, even if that means like taking off your hat, taking off your gloves to allow your body heat to be released so that you aren't sweaty. You don't want to be cold going up, but if you can maintain a really like normal temperature the whole way, you'll be so much more comfortable when you get to the top and you stop moving, or when you like start to come downhill and it's so much colder. All right, so I think I've officially covered most of your questions. If there's anything that I missed, definitely shoot it down below in the comments. I will answer you there. Or if there's anyone watching who is more experienced than I am, please, again, feel free to comment, engage. We are all here to learn, including myself. And yeah, I'm excited to take you guys on a few more adventures. I hope that you found this helpful. If you like this content, if you like this video, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. As you all know, I am hitting the PCT here in a couple of months. So the next few weeks are gonna be all about prep, all the things I'm doing to get ready, and then we will move into one of the biggest adventures of my life. So excited. All right, I'll talk to you soon.